Well, welcome back once again to the Buggy Shop here on Main Street in Joliet, Montana. We're continuing on in this process of what is involved in to rebuild or restore a two-seat buggy. So through the process of this, we're covering really quite a few aspects of the carriage trade. The initial part of this in the first video in this playlist involves the work of the wheelwright, that of building the wheels and the undercarriage for a vehicle. The next trade involves the trade of the wainwright. The wainwright is the one that is involved in building the seats and the bodies of the buggies or coaches. Then we get into the painting process, which we're involved in right now, and there was a whole different department attributed to that. We also have done the top work, and we have the seats yet to do, and this involves what we call today the upholstery department. But back in those days, it was called the trimming department. Those who did the trim work, the seats and the top, were called trimmers. We've also got involved last week a little bit into the work of the artwork in the painting department of that of called the liner or the striper. Well, this week I've got a little bit more to do. But remember last week I said I made a mistake in the lining or the striping of this undercarriage, and I wondered how many of you caught it. Well, there were a number of you that pointed out that there were variations here and there. There were differences in the line placement on the fellies. Some of the symmetry was wrong, or maybe not wrong, but different between one part and another. And you're all correct in that. But that's not what I was alluding to. You know, the art of the striper or the liner was, it varied from individual to individual. Now I have done a fair bit of striping, but it has been, I think, 7 years since I had done my last project. This vehicle that I'm working on now, this striping process probably took me 5-6 hours to do. It's not really a very detailed project as compared to this vehicle that I worked on about 7 years ago. This is a Yellowstone coach that I worked on, and the degree of striping on this undercarriage is far more intensive than what I'm working on now. So between this undercarriage and this body and the lettering that I did on this coach, I have between maybe 50 to 60 hours worth of striping on this vehicle. So the amount of striping is directly related to how well the striping process is done. I found that in my case, the more I do it, the better I get at it. So, this vehicle here, there are some variations, but that's the part of the handcrafted part of these old coaches that is so valuable. When I started doing this, I was really particular and hard on myself because everything was not perfect. But the more I studied old carriages, the striping on some of these, although very well done, they are not all perfect as we would expect computer-generated vinyl onlays that are possible to us today. That actually takes away from the value of the striping process. So these little variations that many of you picked up on are actually good attributes when it comes down to analyzing and looking at the striping process. But what I did incorrectly was different. And many of you caught that also in about that 16-minute mark. I had done 3 wheels, and then I had some visitors show up. So I got a little distracted. So when I went back and did the 4th wheel, my mind really wasn't in the game. And I striped that, and I put about a 3 or 4 second shot of that. But I put that stripe on the outer edge of the hub instead of up against the inner flange, as I'll show you here the differences. So it's not a big deal, but on the inside of the hub I had put 2 stripes, and as I did this I debated whether I should put 2 stripes on this outer portion of the hub also. But I was indecisive, so I started out with 1. Well, with this little disruption, I went back and I put it on the outside edge of this hub on one. So it's an easy fix. I just went back and I made double stripes on all of them. So that's the part that, you know, that I was alluding to that I had done incorrectly, but it was easily fixable. So with that little variation fixed on the hubs, I next need to stripe the shafts and the pole. Now these stripes are not necessarily a standard stripe on any set of shafts. There are quite a wide variety of styles that are done. This is one that I just chose to do on this set of shafts to kind of doll it up a little bit. So part of the responsibility in the trimmers department is to trim out the shafts. So we have what is called a shaft trim kit that we also offer for sale, and I'm going to put that trim kit on this set of shafts to demonstrate how I put them on. Now there are some variations in how this is done also, and even I don't always do it the same every time. But I'm going to start out by trimming out the tips of the shafts that slide through and rest in what's called the shaft loops. This is what carries the shafts, the weight of the tips of the shafts in the harness when the horse is hooked up to the carriage. Now the next part of this shaft trim kit is done basically for a style of harness that is called the breast collar style harness. Now I've got some pictures here that I'm going to show you. This is the breast style harness. It's basically just a straight strap that goes around the chest of the horse that connects to each of the traces or tugs on the harness. Light driving harness, these are usually called traces that go back and hook to the single tree which the horse pulls the buggy with. Well, with this breast strap style harness, it has a tendency to be able to creep right or left around the shoulders of the horse as the horse moves. So in order to contain that movement, I'm going to put a shaft trim kit on this single tree that will minimize this harness from shifting right to left. Now on this style of a collared style harness, that is not quite the problem. That collar keeps those traces or tugs stationary and in place because of the collar. The style of the collar is firmly on the neck of the horse. So I'm going to finish out this trimming with putting these straps around the single trees to retain the movement. So about 18 inches ahead of the single tree are also a pair of straps that are put on the shafts, and the traces go through these loops to kind of keep everything neat and orderly as they go from the shoulder of the horse back to the single tree. Now sometimes you'll see these shafts with just the straps only, but I'm going to put a piece of this patent underneath that just to make it all kind of look uniform, and I personally just kind of like this style. So when a team or a pair is hooked to this buggy through the use of this pole, the likelihood of them having a breast style harness is very rare. They do exist out there, but you very seldom see them today. The collared style harness is the most likely to be used. So the DoubleTree is retained by these straps, which we've mentioned earlier in an earlier video. So I don't need the straps around the single trees, but these single trees can bump up against the evener. So I'm going to put a little cover underneath the single tree ends that can bounce up against this evener just to protect the paint on the evener. So as we're headed into some of the final stages on this restoration on this buggy, the painting and the trimming is some of the last steps that are done. So anyway, I appreciate you following along. This is the work of the trimmer when it came into building the carriages. Once again, thanks for following along and thanks for watching.